Hi, everybody, and welcome to Friday Night Spotlight, brought to you by Jones Ford Buick GMC, your hometown dealer for more than 50 years. I'm Brian Wright, and I am joined by Maria Vasquez. We're doing it a little bit differently today, doing a remote Skype broadcast here. So bear with us as we tear into some Week 6 action, and we're going to get right to it and start with our game of the week, which is going to be Combs going on the road to Apache Junction. Now, Combs had 2 week a 2 week hiatus based on a COVID-19 outbreak at the school, and they came back on Saturday. They returned from that 2 week layoff Saturday and got a win over Phoenix Thunderbird. And meanwhile, AJ is coming off a victory last week over Arcadia. So, Maria, when you look at this matchup, what do you think is going to be some of the key factors?
So this is going to be a really fun matchup, I believe, because of the two quarterbacks these teams have. They're both sophomores. Combs has Tanner Hale, who, coming off a 2 week quarantine, you would expect the Coyotes to have a little rust. Well, he did throw a couple picks, but that's more due to his inexperience being a first-year varsity starter. And then for Apache Junction, you have Gavin Lamangelo, who has just been spectacular for the prospectors, already throwing over 1,000 passing yards. So I expect these two guys to pretty much be the highlight reel during this game.
Well, I couldn't agree more. I mean, this is a fantastic matchup between two sophomore quarterbacks, like you said. And it's one of those things where going into the year, we weren't really sure what we were going to see at quarterback. Both of these teams had established seniors last year that graduated. And I think with the way these two sophomores are playing, it really gives this rivalry, which is already a game that has plenty of juice, it gives it even more juice. So that's exciting. Now, a couple of other very impactful offensive players who are some of the most exciting players we have in the county. For AJ, you got wide receiver Cameron Garcia, and he's coming off a great junior year, and he's doing even better this year. He's already got 750 yards receiving. They've only played 5 games and 39 receptions, so he has a great rapport with Gavin Lamangelo. And then, of course, for Combs, you have Joey Jensen, who is coming off another 100-yard game last week against Thunderbird. And he had 110 yards and a touchdown rushing, and then he also caught a touchdown as well. So those are a couple of the things I'm looking at. Maria, what do you think is going to be the difference in this game?
Well, after watching Saturday's game with Combs, I think it's going to be Michael Davenport. Now, this kid did a fantastic job on both sides of the ball. He got an interception, returned it for a 30-yard touchdown. Um, you know, I was a little worried about how they would look given the 2 week hiatus. I mean, you couldn't even tell that Combs had been off for 2 weeks. So I'm expecting another big game from the Coyotes. Their defense, I mean, you just have to pick a guy, either Mason Brockman, Brody Tucker, or Taniela Taonima. The list just goes on and on for who the big playmakers are and what kind of pressure they can put on the opposing quarterback.
Yeah, and I think if we're going to talk about defensive players, AJ does have Brody Bullard is kind of the guy for them at linebacker who always seems to be near the football. And I do want to give a shout out too to Bruce Binkley, who's in his first year with AJ as the coach, and he is doing a great job with the prospectors. That's going to do it for our breakdown on the game of the week, and enjoy the game on Friday night. All right, we are going to transition to the picks portion of our program, and let's get started with our game of the week, which is Combs going on the road to Apache Junction. And like we already talked about, this is going to be a really good matchup. I'm specifically excited to see what happens with these two sophomore quarterbacks who are both lighting it up right now and seem to have really bright futures ahead of them. I think this is going to be a very competitive game. I'm going to take Combs to win close. I do like the fact that Travis Miller, has been with this team several years. So I think that, they have established themselves and have played in big games. They played in this rivalry game under his leadership. And I really like Joey Jensen at running back. I think the Coyotes win a close one.
I'm also taking the Coyotes to win the Battle of Ironwood, as they call it. I just think they have more offensive weapons than the Prospectors do. Yes, you have Gavin Lamangelo and his go-to guy in Cameron Garcia, but other than that, they don't have much help offensively, so I'm taking the Coyotes. Our next game is CG Union traveling to Queen Creek, Benjamin Franklin. And Ben Franklin has really struggled moving up to 4A from 3A. The past couple of years, they were a really strong running team, but we really haven't seen that this year. They really struggled offensively, and I'm taking the Cougars in this game.
And I'll be covering that game, so I do not have a pick. Let's move on to Vista Grande hosting Surprise Willow Canyon. And, you look on paper, and this should be a game that Vista Grande can win. But I got to tell you, I just think that the mistakes and the turnovers from the Spartans, we're seeing it every week. It's not getting corrected. Donald Altaffer is a capable quarterback for them. They have a really outstanding receiver in Tyrese Constable, but just too many turnovers, and they haven't gotten that problem corrected. So I'm going to take Willow Canyon.
I'm also taking Willow Canyon. They have two quarterbacks who are pretty decent at throwing the ball. Sophomore running back Vance Cooper, over 400 rushing yards, 7 touchdowns. And like you mentioned, until the Spartans can kind of clean up their offense and not make so many mistakes, it's hard to pick them. So I'm taking Willow Canyon. Our next game is Poston Butte traveling to Peoria, and there's really no reason to bet against the Broncos right now. They seem pretty much unstoppable, both offensively and defensively. The past 2 games, I've really liked what I've seen from Gavin Lloyd's passing game. Over 275 yards, 6 touchdowns, and only 1 interception. I'm taking the Broncos.
Yeah, and I think Peoria is probably going to provide a decent test for Poston Butte, but I look at what Peoria did last week. They won 7-0, and good luck beating Poston Butte if you score 7 points. You better bring some firepower, and Poston Butte certainly has that firepower. Zion Burns in the backfield, and of course Gavin Lloyd at quarterback. And I got the Broncos in this one. Next, we have Maricopa going on the road to Marana. And it's been really a little bit of a nightmare season for Maricopa. They did get a season opening win, and then since then it's kind of all been downhill. They've had some injuries, and they've just had a lot of inconsistency from the quarterback position and elsewhere. And they couldn't even beat a winless Apollo team a couple weeks ago. They actually got beat pretty handily. And so I think Marana, who's actually playing its first game of the season, I think that Marana is going to win this one, and I think that the struggles are going to continue for the Rams.
Yeah, there's just a lot of question marks for Maricopa. They've struggled moving the ball. They've had a lot of penalties, and until they can find an answer to quarterback, whether that is going back with Cipriano Childers or Cassius Campbell, I think the Rams' struggles are going to continue. So I'm taking Marana. Our next game is Florence hosting Safford, and Safford is a really physical team. They beat Coolidge last week, just barely, but still, it's a win against a really good Coolidge defense. Florence has struggled to close out games, so I'm taking Safford.
Yeah, I think that win for Safford last week was a good confidence builder for them. They do have first-year head coach John O'Meara, who actually had a very distinguished college career at Eastern Arizona College, just down the road from Safford. And they're going to play physical football. They're going to run the triple option. And Florence, while they can score, the Gophers have had a real tough time stopping the other team from scoring. And I just think that the Bulldogs might have a little bit too much physicality for the Gophers, and I got Safford in that one. Next, we have Santan Foothills going on the road to Thatcher. And I'm going to apologize up front because I don't have the guy's name offhand, but I do know that Thatcher's lead running back did rush for 300 yards and 6 touchdowns last week, which is just ridiculous. And I think that the Eagles are going to have a little bit too much offense for the SaberCats, and I have Thatcher in this one.
I'm also taking the Eagles. So last week they played Santan Foothills. It's been really difficult to find out what the strength for Santan Foothills defense is, whether stopping the pass or stopping the run. I see them struggling this week again, and I'm taking Thatcher. Our next game is Coolidge traveling to ALA Gilbert North. So the quarterback for Gilbert North, Jack Reisdorf, is possibly one of the best in the state. Over 1,400 passing yards, 11 touchdowns, and only 2 interceptions. Um, I think that's going to be a little too much for the Coolidge defense to handle. And then for Coolidge offensively, if their running game struggles, then it's going to be a tough night for the Bears.
And I am also going to take ALA Gilbert North. As you mentioned, Maria, they do have a really accomplished passing attack, and I think that's going to be a big challenge for that Coolidge defense. Even though I do like the Coolidge defense, I mean, they got some players on that defense, but this will probably be, their biggest test, certainly passing wise. I mean, they played Santa Cruz, who has an unbelievable running attack, but this will be their biggest challenge passing wise. And I think Coolidge, they're going to need a big game from Greg Rodriguez on the ground to also keep the ball away from Reisdorf. But I don't really see that happening, at least not enough for the Bears. I have Gilbert North. Next, we have ALA Ironwood going on the road to Push Ridge. And it's been kind of the same old issues for Ironwood, still winless. They have tried out 4 different quarterbacks this year, and when you look at their cumulative numbers, they're only completing about 44% of their passes. They've had 8 interceptions thrown. So they've really struggled there. I mean, they haven't done much better running the football either, but I really think that they need to find some level of consistency at the quarterback position to have a better chance. And I just think that Push Ridge is probably going to win this one running away.
I'm also taking Push Ridge, and speaking of running away, their running back Evan Lovett, his game last week against Santan Foothills, he had over 220 rushing yards on 10 carries. The Warriors defense has also struggled just like the offense, so I'm going to take Push Ridge. And our next game is Santa Cruz going up against Arizona College Prep, and this game will actually be played at Basha High School, and I will be covering this game, so I do not get a pick.
Yeah, I think Arizona College Prep on paper looks like a team that could challenge Santa Cruz, but I don't think that Santa Cruz has any peer in Class 2A. And until somebody proves me wrong, I'm going to continue to think that way. Santa Cruz is too strong. Hunter Ogle is a beast on both sides of the ball. He's already got almost 1,000 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. And he is their best defender as well at linebacker. And then you talk about other guys on the defensive side of the ball like Steve Calvin and Robert Maldonado, and I think the Dust Devils are going to be all over College Prep. I got Santa Cruz. And our last game is going to be Sequoia Pathway going on the road to Heritage Academy Levine. Now, Heritage Academy is winless, so I am going to go ahead and pick the Pumas here, but I do have to say that Sequoia Pathway has had a lot of issues in its last 2 games with penalties. And I don't just mean holding, pass interference. I mean unsportsmanlike conduct, personal fouls. The games have gotten chippy. The games have gotten, to a certain extent, dirty. And I'm not saying that's all Sequoia Pathway's fault, but I do think that the Pumas really have some issues being more disciplined, and they need to be more disciplined. And I would like to see Sequoia Pathway play a little bit cleaner of a game, but I am going to take them to win.
I'm also taking Sequoia Pathway. Now, following last week's game against Santa Cruz, towards the end of the game, there was a little scuffle between the 2 teams. 2 Pumas got ejected, so Sequoia Pathway will likely be without Isaiah Stewart and Andre Smith, 2 big playmakers for them. However, they're still going to have quarterback Alex Montaño and Ufio Jones and Trey Lacey going up against a winless and struggling Heritage Academy. I'm still taking the Pumas in this game.
All right, that does it for our picks. Remember to visit PinalCentral.com for all of your Pinal County football action, and we'll see you next week.